Hey everyone, Tim Higgins here. So we're going to do probably a series of videos of some advanced stuff that you can do with DevTest, or in our case, service virtualization. Now, if you saw in the other videos, you can do very simple recordings, HTTP type recordings, but there's a lot of other stuff. If you need to go in there and manipulate the data, the response, and things like that, to me, I find it easier to do it inside the workstation. So in this case, we're going to use the workstation to do some advanced modifications to our recordings. Now, I'm looking at one here that comes with your examples just because it has a good layout. And we will come back to probably this one later. I'm not sure if I can get it to work. So let's not look at the test. I'm sorry, let's go here and look at the actual model, but let me describe the difference. So if you don't know, and if you haven't seen any of my other videos, there is a slight difference. I like the kiosk one. Here we go. There's a slight difference between your, well, let me back up totally. Let's talk about the VSI and the VSM. A VSI image basically handles your request and response, your matching, tolerances, and your response to your unknown request. Now, a lot of people don't know that. So we'll talk about those. And the VSM, which is your virtual service model, receives a request, creates and sends the responses, okay? Now, what you're looking at here is we're looking at a conversational one versus a stateless, okay? So that means it has to go in this order. Now, I have this way for a reason, but we're going to go ahead and go to stateless, and I'm going to minimize this. One of the most important things I want to cover first is actually the matching, okay? So when you look at this, you have your logical transactions up here, and then down here you have your meta, and then you have your specific, okay? Now, we'll describe what all that means here in a few seconds. When you think of your matching, whenever it comes in, it has a logical order that it goes through. Now, over here on the right-hand side is all the properties that go with this. So in this case, I'm looking at list users. Let's look at add users. It's probably a little bit better. Let's actually look at it from here. There we go, add users. It's just a cleaner way of doing it, and we'll cover all this as we go through, okay? So when I look at these are our methods, right? Our method calls. Now, I'm a developer. You all probably should know that. So to me, these are methods, but truthfully, is there are transactions within your, if it's a REST call or a SOAP call or whatever it may be. If you notice the transactions, let me kind of go across some of these important tabs right here, and then we'll talk about it. The first one I can go to is create a new transaction. Okay, so again, these are transactions. If I need to create a new one, I can click here, or I can click down here or down here. So if I want to create a new transaction to add a user, I can create it here. Now I can delete it from here, and I can delete it from here. I may be telling you wrong. This one may be just for up here. Let's add it. Yeah, so that's just up for here. But I can delete it from here, and I can delete it from here as well, and I can add it from here. So if I want to manually create a transaction, I can do that as well. Let's go ahead and delete that. The other thing that I have turned on automatically, and I think you should, well, let me get to that in a few seconds. The other thing you do is you can change your order. So if I have a couple of these, right, then I can change what order that they're being executed in, and that's very important. If you notice, this is changing up here. Let's see, I thought it would change. Oh, it does. It changes right here. So, okay, so that order is very important as well, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So let me just go ahead and delete these. Oops. Well, it kind of stinks. I have to delete one at a time, but that's totally fine. So let's go ahead and delete these. And again, these up here are this is what we call logic operators, and these down here are actually what we call specific, okay? Or your meta, every transaction will have a default meta. So when you look at the process order of things being executed, sorry, I got sidetracked there for a second, but that's okay. Where were we? So we're talking about the matching. So you have, the next thing, we're going across this, I'm sorry. This will refresh your magic strings. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, so you can understand how that works. In fact, I probably can give you a demo of how that works. But anyway, so, and then when you go through here and look, in fact, I can give you a demo of that. When you go through here and look, like get users, it's going to look at your metadata first, okay? And then it's going to go to whatever the next specific is. And that is based off your matching style. So let's talk about that for a few seconds. There's a few standard matches style. There's actually a fourth one, which kind of threw me off because it's fairly new, but it's kind of cool. If I remember correctly, the default one is signature. So if you think about it, operation means it only matches on the name. And if you're watching this, I hope you're smart enough to know what an operation is. But if you don't, it's right here below you, right? So it's going to only match on get user. Now, it doesn't care what the arguments are. It doesn't care what the parameters are. It only matches on that. Okay, so the next one it's going to go to is signature, or we're going to go to, you can set it to whatever you want. A signature matches on the operation and the names of the arguments. It doesn't care so much about the values, okay? Because here I should have two values. Oh, I guess I'm missing one. It should be password. I must actually delete it, but that's okay. Either that or I picked a different one, but that's okay. Tomato, tomato, who cares? And then the next one is going to go to exact. Exact cares about the operation, the username, and the value. Now, the trick to the value is it doesn't have to be the value per se. You could use operations. So maybe I want everything being passed through that doesn't equal this value. Okay, so let's go back to here, equal. And if you notice, we're using magic string, so we'll cover that in a few seconds because I like to kind of spin something up to show you that. Now, with that, there's a fourth one. Let me go ahead and get some real estate here. Well, I can say right there, so that works. See the select to match? If I go to selective, then if I had about 5 or 6 arguments in here, so let's go here and just say if I add a couple of these, right? And then I only want these 2 arguments right here. So signature, let's go to, oh, metadata doesn't have it for some reason. So if we go down here and look at this one, and if I go selective, now I can say, give me, you know, just these matches, not that one or these, and it's going to look at those. Now, my opinion, when would you use this? I'm not sure what the use case was, but when I saw it, the first thing I thought about is maybe I have dynamic parameters, maybe I can use it that way. I'm really not sure. So let's go ahead and delete those just to be safe. But the point is, and again, I can move these parameters around because if I'm looking exact, then it does care about that as well. Let's see. Oh, there's an easy way. I can just use the delete key on the keyboard. There we go. Okay. But let's put it back to normal. So those are your matching styles. It also talks about the land of this page here. The couple things that you need to know is, again, this is your signature, this is your request data, and your response data is here. The response data, we'll talk about magic strings in just a few minutes, but based off the response data is what's being returned back to your user. So what happens is if I hit this URL, HTTP, get user, and I don't care, you get the idea of signature and blah, 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 blah. So if I do signature and I'm passing in the data, it's going to look for a match. And if it does, the first thing it's going to do is look at the metadata and return that match. If that match isn't found, then after that, it looks at the next one below, which is our specific match, okay? And based off of that, I can change how I want this up here to handle it. So in that case, I don't care. I just want everything to be default. As long as you got the method, then you can come through, or in this case, as long as you got the operation, then you can come through, and I'm good with that. Now, let's say, and we'll talk about this a little bit in a few minutes. Let's say what if, just what if, there isn't a found? What happens if it goes to here and there's not a found? Okay, in that case, I can go over here, and most people don't know this. This other tab is called a service image, and the service image is going to return my default response, and there's 2 of them. There's conversational and there's stateless. What did we say this was? Stateless? Okay, so if I go over here, and you can customize this, and depending on what you're returning, in this case, it's returning SOAP. Let's just pretend like it's returning JSON, or maybe I just want to return HTML, right? So we can do something like this. And again, I would recommend using some kind of IDE, some kind of wizard, some kind of, you know, front end to help you with this. But let's see. Oh, it's not header, it's head in it. So head, and then title. We'll say, you know, we'll say not found, or you are lost. Okay, that's my title. And then inside the body, we'll just do this. And we'll just maybe do a H1 tag just to make it bold, right? And we'll say, sorry, you need to find another page. Okay, and then we'll just close that off, okay? And just like that, I created my default response if nothing is there, okay? You can also return your data. So if I want to change this to maybe a 404, I can do that as well. Okay, and that's going to be my default response. Now, with seeing that, if you think about matching again, hopefully I'm not bouncing too much, but if you think about the matching again, it's going to go from the meta, right? And then it's going to bounce to the specific, and then it's going to go to If that's not found, then it's going to jump over here and return this. Okay, hope that makes sense. Now again, I'm kind of going a little bit fast. I probably should slow down, but I want to get through this, and I don't want the video to be 5 pages long, right? The one thing I would like to try to show you, if possible, is show you how this works when it's running live. So we'll look at that in a few minutes. But right now, what I want to do is talk about magic strings. If you notice this kind of little curly brackets, you should know by now, those are kind of how we use our parameters inside of the code, or inside of anything, basically. So what I want to do is, if I look here, this is using a magic string, which is here. So if I look at my request coming in as user, it has this really weird value here, but notice it says magic string. Now, it's probably easier to show you this than to explain this to you, but basically what happens is it comes in and says, you know what, I see this as a magic string. Let's see if we can do it in Notepad. And let's say that equals ID. Okay, so ID equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, that's your request. Okay, now, service virtualization is smart enough to say, oh, you know what, you got a matching response, and this happens on the recording. You have a matching response of maybe, user ID equals 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so the naming doesn't matter here. It doesn't have to be the same name, but it is identified as a magic string. Now, in this response, it may have like first name, which we do here, right? In this JSON data or XML, whatever this was. Yeah, this is just XML, but I have it right here. So I have like first name, little notepad. First name, we have a last name, I have an email. Now I wouldn't put it in the order that the XML is in, but we have this basic information, right? Phone number, and maybe I have data in here, right? So that equals Tim, that equals Higgins, this equals T Higgins at anisolutions.com, and this equals 555.555.55. I'm not giving you my phone number, come on, get real. 555. Now, with seeing that, if you passed in 1, 2, 3, 4, this is what you're going to get back. Now, if magic strings is there, let's say if I pass in ABC, it's going to return ABC, but ABC wasn't recorded, but it's going to say, oh, you meant to return a user ID, so we'll make the user ID match this, and we're going to return this data. Now, this data may not match what an ABC is, but you do get valid test data, which is kind of what you're going for here, right? So the developer or the QA may not care that it's Tim. It might be Mickey Mouse as far as they care. They just need it to be data, right? So with saying that, it looks at this magic string and says, oh, you want this payload with this user ID. And that's how magic strings work. Now, there is such thing as a magic dates, and they're a little bit more complicated, but not really. They just have some logic based off the dates, and you can define that as well. But what happens is during the recording, service virtualization is smart enough to go through the recording and say, oh, you want this to be a magic string. So let's see if we can make that happen. Let me see if I can give you an example of that. And then I'd like to come back and give you an example of this. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a recording. And now I'm doing it here instead of using the portal. All the other ones I've done the portal. And so what we'll do a browse. We'll go here and we'll just create a folder. New folder. We'll call it SV demo, some sort, something like that. And then that's fine. This is going to, it wants to know the name of your XML file. So we'll save it. That's going to be, and then we'll do the model file, which is supposed to be your VSM file. So we'll go over here. You'll see these once we create them. And I'll just call this test. And I'm going to go ahead and change it down to a VSE so we get the right thing. And I'm going to hit set save. Okay. Now, so I've got a test VSM and I got a test XML. Okay. Remember virtual service model. Now, there's a difference between more flexibility and more efficiently. Now, more, how do I explain this? One of them basically gives you more tabs or more controls. And we'll talk about that when we get to it. That's kind of maybe not important for what we're trying to show, but we will come back to it, okay? Because there is a very fine line between the two, but basically one of them gives you more little tags. If you remember seeing the one that had the little square things in it, it gives you a few more by default, okay? And it's actually more efficiently, I believe. I'll get that backwards, but who cares? Tomato, tomato, we'll figure it out. Now, very important, we're gonna do our cars my cars, even though it's HTTP 2.0, it didn't really work with that. I had to go to HTTP, okay? That's what the cars is. And I'm going to say treat everything as stateless. So stateless and non-stateless is basically does the call depending on another transaction, okay? Let me think about this. Actually, the cars would. So let's just go ahead and make it stateless. Okay, de-identifier means it's going to look for certain keywords and kind of like PII data, and it's going to basically mask those for you. So social security number, instead of doing the real social security number, and I may do this in another video, started doing the real social security number. If I remember, I'll show you this. It's in this patterns thing. Oh, I can still get to it. So if I look at these are showing me patterns down here. So if it sees a social security number, it can put this pattern in there, and the social security number will come back as not a valid. It'll look like a social security number, but it won't be a real social security number in your data. So it's kind of a way to do PII data, okay? Allow duplicate specific transactions means it can be called more than once. So let's go ahead and hit next. Yeah, that's fine. I didn't realize I already had one there. Now in this case, we're gonna do localhost. Okay, and let me see if my app's even running. It looks like it is. Let's just see if I can minimize all this and see if I can get to my cars. The cars are here. So if you ever seen the cars website says, you know, this is the cars. Oh, you know what? Let's make sure we don't have this running. That's probably the most important thing because I give this demo a lot. Let's go to our portal. And let's look at, I mean, I could do this from the thick client too, but this is just easier. So we're going to go down to monitoring. I want to see what I've got running here. Inside my VSE, I do have one and it is running and it's port A001. So let's go ahead and kill that. So we'll just say stop and close. And I'm just going to go ahead and delete that one too. Okay. So we'll just go ahead and delete. That way we can push one up. All right. So let's go back over here to our cars, and that might have been using that VSE. So let's see what it looks like. No. Okay. So it's fine. All right. So we'll copy that and we'll change this to, we just change it to A001. It's fine. Put it back to what we have it as, because what we're doing is we're setting our back end to match this VSE. Make sure it's set. Okay. And the original target backend is 7,000. I've just done this demo enough. I know what it is. So localhost, I'm going to listen on port 8001. I kept leaving off the 8. And what that means is the front end is going to say, hey, I'm going to go through the recorder. Notice there's no data there because we don't have the recorder running. But I'm going to go through the recorder on 8001, and you're going to pick up transactions, and then you're going to pass that to our real backend, which is 7,000. So if I hit next, I think the rest of this is fine. So let's hit next. And now we're kind of just cruising along. We're going to go home. I'm going to hit refresh. I'm going to hit search. And now I have data. And if I look, I actually have transactions. Okay, so here's my cars, make car. This is using the JSON, which is pretty cool. Now, if I hit view details, it's going to give me details of that one. Hit the VIN number. I do a lookup on the VIN number. That's pretty cool. Let's just do like maybe one or two more. Oops. I'm going to go back to here. We'll look at this one. And we'll look up the VIN number here. And that's good. So there's a reason I'm doing 2 or 3, because service virtualization is going to do this for you. And I'm going to look it up. Okay, and look up. There we go. So now if I look, I've got some things going on. I've got some transactions. That's pretty cool. I've got some JSON data. More importantly, I got these VIN numbers. Okay, so if I just hit next, because we're good, we're going to stop our recording. So ask me where the base path is. I'm going to assume it's inventory, just because everything's falling within the inventory rank. So if I go here, actually, maybe it isn't, because there's inventory. But notice we don't have data anymore because we turned that off. That's fine. That may not be correct, but let me see what happens if I hit next. So here we're using the REST protocol. That is true. It's using REST because we're using JSON. Let's hit next. Oh, I went back. I'm kind of afraid to say, because doing it through the portal, it picks up automatically. We can always do it through the portal and look at it. So if this errors out, that's what we'll do. But here's what I wanted to show you. Notice I don't have 5 different VIN numbers here. I think I really did 3, right? I have this parameter, and this parameter picked up to all 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is saying go through the parameter. This is very important because, now we didn't talk about parameters, so I'll talk just for a second. Service virtualization was smart enough to say, well, instead of me creating 3 of these, I'm going to create 1, and I'm going to add this parameter list to it. And that's what it's picking up, okay? So that gives me each one of these. Now the other thing too is what it will do, it will take this number as a magic string. Okay, and I think it errors out on me right here, but if it does, we'll just do it through the portal, just so you can see what it looks like. But here, let me see if I can get some real estate. If I click on the cars inventory, I can see the payload that is kind of came through, right? Image, here's a class, type, fuel. So there's a lot of information here. So let's go ahead, and I can force stateless if I want to. Don't really care about that, but notice here's a parameter. So these are my remaining transactions. Okay. So what if we say, maybe I need to move this one over. I'm going to say force stateless, maybe because I don't have any, I don't know what goes first, to be honest with you. And that's where your that's where it comes into play for using your transactional. So let's just say next. Yeah, see, I got this error message. I think it's along the lines just, I'm not really sure which one of these should go first. So what we can do, no, it's locked up. So what we can do is just go to the portal real quick, just to have something in there. Now, I did it earlier and it worked, and then I deployed it and it worked. So that's what I just deleted. Now, with saying that, let's look at doing it here for kicks and giggles. So we'll go create, because I want you to see what the magic strings look like, okay? So we're gonna do a virtual service, and we'll just say cars, and then HTTP next. And then here, let's get this right. So what I've got to do is go change this into cars. And I don't have to, I could change it there, but I like to have a separation. So we'll say edit and save. And then our backend is going to be localhost. Got some real estate here. HTTP, I don't think you can use HTTP, but we're about to find out. Localhost :7000 is my backend. If it turns green, we're golden. All right, we're golden. So I'm going to hit record. Now, supposedly we're recording. If I hit refresh, I should see my cars, and I do. We'll click on this one. VIN number, awesome. Look it up, great. And then we'll go back to search, and we'll just do 2 of these for now. Actually, let's do 3, because we did 3 in the thick client. And then we'll go down, we'll just pick this one. And 90% of the time, best practice is you're probably going to do your recordings nowadays through the portal, okay? And then you can take it into your thick client. Where's the portal? Oh, there it is. And then you can take it into your thick client to modify it. Okay, so we'll look at how to do that too. But here I've got 24 transactions. We'll stop, and I'll just say next. Cancel. I almost hit start recording again. The one thing I don't like about this is there's not really crazy about real estate. Next, and notice that we're picking up a REST protocol. I have no response that's any different. Here again, I'm picking up the same files. Here's that JSON, cars. Notice that we're still picking up the parameters, which is pretty good. It's right here. It did it for us. So we'll just say save next. What I'm going to do, I don't think I have yeah, I do have a project called cars. Okay. So I'm just going to say save and deploy, and the same part. And we'll just give it a tag called cars. My think time's 100%, that's fine. And then save. So now we've got it in there. We can go use it. Again, you can look at your transactions right here. But the main thing I'm pointing at is the magic strings. So let's give it a second, and it should show up. May have to hit refresh, just because it's not the best at refreshing. So we'll go here, monitor, VSE. Come on, wake up. There we go. So now it's running. So now if I go in here and look, where's my cars? My cars. So now if I go in here and look, these are running in here in the back end. Now if I hit this one, we recorded this one, so it's correct. It's $3,995, whatever. $3,995. It's in, let's look for the brand of the car. If I click here, I should be able to see the brand of the car. Yeah, so it's an Audi sedan. So now if I go back over here, and let's pick one that we know we didn't record, which is here. So our price is almost $8,000. If I look, I don't have that. So here, this is, well, that's an Audi. What if we do the BMW? Notice it still says Audi. And this is 35,000 almost. And this is only 4,000. So what's happening? But look, the key is the VIN number matches the VIN number here. Now, what's going on is it's saying thanks for this VIN number, okay? But this is a magic string because since I didn't find a recording for this, I'm going to bring you back the default recording, which would have been the first one. That's how magic strings work. Now, a couple of things. Most importantly, all these cars will work. It may not be the data that you were expecting, because that's an Audi, but it's a 4AC. So it's really different than this one, especially the price. But notice the VIN number is different. The VIN number matches the original. So we're passing in a VIN number, and service virtualization is saying, oh, you just want data. So as a developer, I don't really care about the make, I don't care about the model, as long as it's valid. And that's how magic strings work, okay? So that's kind of why I bounced over here. So I showed you not only magic strings, but we looked at the parameters as well. So parameterizing your stuff. So let's go ahead and stop this one, just because it's good. Okay, stop. And then let's go back over here and let's just set this back to original. So if I use it again, which I know I will because I use it all the time, then we're good. So let me set this back. Oops, I forgot to save. Save, set back, and I should see my cars. Say refresh, and there's my cars. So now if I go back and click on, we looked at this BMW, and if I look at here, it is back to the original data. Okay, so that's magic strings. Now we didn't look at the magic dates, but it pretty much works the same way. Now I told you that we would look at this in the thick client. This has a refresh rate. You can modify it, I think, and turn it off. Yeah, auto refresh. Let's turn it off because I'm not doing anything. If I want to work on this in thick client, then what I can do is I can download the MAR file just like that, and then I can upload the MAR file into the thick client and work on it there. So let's see what that looks like. So if I go over here, now what I like to do is a little crazy. So notice I did it earlier, but let's just go ahead and copy that, and we'll drop this onto our desktop, and we'll just call it, I think we'll put it here, so we'll just keep it in there, just keep it safe. And just like that, I closed everything. Oops. So we'll go down here. What I like to do, you don't have to do, because it's just easier and clean for me. You can upload it here, but what I like to do is say new project, and we'll give it a name called Cars 2. Now here, I can base this off the following, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go point to that MAR file. So put it in here, and then create. And do you want to save changes? No, it's okay. So now here's the MAR file. Now I can see the VSI. Okay, here's our cars. Here's the parameter that we were talking about. So if I go over here and look, I can see it's parameterized. That's this URL, param M0. If you have more, right, you can have as many as you want. I think the next one's like MAR1 or something like that. So if I have multiple ones, but you'd really only have one per URL, at least you should. You may not, but hey, that's kind of weird if you do. Now, if I look here, I can see, notice these values are changing, right? So that's why I have 3, but it's really kind of not important. I could really delete 2 of these and it would still work, because if you look at my meta, I am using magic strings, okay? So if we look at the response to this, yeah, so now it's kind of ugly, but let's see. Is this JSON? It should be JSON. So let's just say text viewer, and let's go tree view. There we go. So if I come down here and look, this is our car. And now here I can see my VIN is a magic string. The key is this last number is the default one, okay? So it's actually looking at the parameter as a magic string. Now here's what's beautiful about this. This is gonna return this car, right? Now, what if I wanted to return another one? So what I like to do, now this one's a little overloaded. So if I go to text view, I don't think this is a true JSON, but it might be. But basically what I can do is do that and return another mimic version of the car. That's one of the powerful things about using service virtualization, is I can manage and control my response however I want to, as long as it doesn't break the app or something like that, right? Now this is using the class right here, so it's a little bit different. This ID is a little bit different, so it's a premium plus. So what I want to do is just kind of go through here and do this. Here's the dealer, right? So I could change that. So, but the point is I can come in here and modify this response anyhow I want it, and that way the user gets a response. Now, the truth is I should be able to come here and delete these, bam, and it would still work because I'm using the parameter. I mean, using the magic strings, okay? Now, with seeing that, the other trick too is if you noticed before I deleted them, they had these numbers. That's what this right here does. I leave it on by default. You don't have to, but when you leave it on, you'll see that 10 and 10 match. So therefore, this transaction is going to match its metadata. Now, it has one below it that is a little bit different, but that has a totally different number. So in this specific return right here, or the specific response, basically, notice it has a 45. Now, when you go look at your matching, like once you do a couple of them and you go look at the details, it will actually tell you which number it used whenever it did its response. So that's pretty important too. Anyway, so I'm going to stop this video because I don't want it to keep going on forever. But basically, we covered some little advanced stuff. Let me see if there's anything I want to throw up in here. Now, I didn't talk about scripting. Scripting gets executed before, like it looks at it before it goes to response. But if I insert one, it's basically just a script. It uses Bean Shell here, JavaScript, Groovy, or whatever. And basically you're saying if the incoming get operation equals whatever, then return this matches. So it's a little bit more advanced, but the documentation is out there. It's not hard to use. I just don't really find much use cases for it. And that may be just me, okay? Now, let's see, is there anything else I'm forgetting? So we talked about the order operations. We talked about this layout here. Oh, yeah, let me show you this. So if I go over here, well, here's our default return. So not found, we talked about that. If I go over here and, oh, we already closed it. So let me go over here and look at, well, let me show you this first. Here's our VSM, okay? And because I chose the other option, I told you it gives you more of these little tabs here. And you can add as many of these as you want, these little steps, because there's a lot of them. Most of this is done, like a lot of times you don't build this manually. We used to have to really modify this back in the day, especially if it was JavaScript. I mean, not JavaScript, but Java code, like JBeans and things like that. Not so much today. A lot of things are really more REST called these days, but I do have examples of using database things. Now, you can mainly create these all you want, but it's just easier to start with a recording and try your best to pick it up from there. Now, I'm not going to talk about these, but these are really detailed, so I may do another video talking about these, but in this case, we're binding our address to this port. You know, our base path is this, because that's what we said it was. And so it was inventory, so I was right. I'm not sure why the recording didn't save. But then if I go in here and look, it's really straightforward. Again, I'm listing on this port. So I could really do this and set my virtualization back to this port and test this, right? And that should work. Well, I'm not my virtualization, I'm sorry. I'm speaking in riddles here. I can go back and set my cars demo back to this report, this port, and this will work again, okay? Now, all this is steps that happen and the details that go with it. Again, there's a lot of things here, filters, assertions, what if you do this? A lot of assertions you'll see right here, like if it's learning, if it's tracing, and that's something totally different. We can talk about that later. Fell over, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that is that. The other thing I wanted to show is not going to be here. So let's just go back to our beginning. Let's see if I can get to it from here. And I want to open up my examples again. And that's another good thing about this. Do I want to save it? No, it's fine. So if I go back here and look, this is the big one. This has a lot of, like this has dev test, testing, and service virtualization in it. So a lot of this you don't really care about until you get here to the bottom. Okay, so let's drop to the bottom. Let's get rid of these tests. And let's go back to, I think, is it kiosk 5? No, I'm sorry, not the model. I'm going to go to the VSI. So here, notice this is conversational, which means this has to talk to that, has to talk to that. So this is pretty common sense, but it means, let's get some real estate here. But basically it means I can't call this method directly. It kind of has to get token, and then it goes from there to there. So get token, get account, deposit something, maybe get account, and then delete token. Okay. So, but the key to that is how deep does the matching work? Okay. So there is this little thing right here. Is it this one? No, not that one. It's this one. No, not that one. Oh, I'm sorry. I got to highlight one of these. Okay. So again, I can see the metadata and I can see the specific return. All this is pretty much the same. Notice this is wide, close, and loose. And that's what I was going to show you. So close means the transaction goes straight down, okay? So the transaction, if I remember correctly, the transaction must go straight down the tree. So close means here or any of these below it, okay? Wide, hold on, give me a second to remember wide. Okay, yeah. So the wide, it goes to the children of the current and its siblings. But I always think of wide as going this way, okay? Like going this way. And we'll look at it in a few minutes. And loose, that's the one that really doesn't care, right? So what that means is that it combines close and wide together. So there is a way to view that, and it's right here. So I was trying to think of it without looking it up here first, but we give this cool little tool to test it. So if I want to know what close is first, close is it and one level down the tree, okay? Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this one, get account, and instead of close, notice this one level down the tree, it didn't go back up. What I want to do is look at, I keep clicking that button. What I want to do is look, oh, it is that one. No, I'm sorry. It's this one. What I want to do now is look at wide. So wide is it and its surroundings, right? So we pick this one and it says, oh, go left, go right, and they're one level siblings, okay? And that's what I mean by, to me, it goes this way, okay? Which is horizontal, right? Horizontal and then one down vertical. And then the last one is loose, which means combine the two. Okay, so we click this one. So it says, you know what? I also get this one because it is connected to me. And then I also go down one, but I also go horizontal as well. So that's what those are. Okay. Again, there's documentation on that. So if you're not sure which one to use, a lot of times just run the test, see if it matches the way you expect it to. And if it doesn't, then go back and change it. Okay. So I hope this was helpful. I'm going to cut this video here, and then I'm going to make a few more just because this covers a lot. So we did talk about, let me think for a second. So we talked about matching, right? We talked about the conversational navigation, the way it works. We talked about the matching hierarchy, how it worked. And we also talked about magic strings a little bit, and the request and the response, the default, and even here you have a default response, right? So the really it's called the response of the unknown request. And we talked a little bit about the model. So anyway, so I hope this was helpful. Most importantly, through this, let's go back to one that just straight. Most important to this is I can add these, right? And I can move these however I want to. I can modify the request data if I want to. Notice here, almost all these are magic strings. That's pretty crazy, right? But it's because it doesn't care. This is taking a payload. What are we looking at? Oh, add user. Yeah, so it doesn't care. It doesn't care that it's checking. As you know, if it comes through, then it's going to try to match on it. If not, then it picks up anyway. And if I look through here, you should see the little parameters. Anyway, I'm not going to go through the trouble of cleaning. You saw that earlier. It's kind of interesting. I saw it as a think time of 143. Interesting. But we also kind of talked about desensorizing. I think that's how it's pronounced it. But basically, what I say is clear out PII data. And you can also add these yourself if you want to. Okay. It's just a pattern. And it's just going to try to figure out close to basically remove that PII data from your recording. I think that's about it for this. I'll do another video because I want to do some more recordings where we can actually look at this match style. So anyway, to keep this from being 4 hours long, I'm going to end it. If you have any questions, please let me know.